Let me see your hands. Hands. Down on the ground. Down on the ground. Down on the ground. Lay on your belly. All right. I got cover. You handcuff, Marconi. Handcuff him.
This is Gurpreet Singh, a devoted husband and loving father. He called 911 from his home late at night on April 28, 2019, in great distress and pleading for help.
911, where's your emergency? Where are you at? Where are you at? Do you have an address?
Yes, 4562.
What's the address?
Century Drive.
What's going on? I will send help, but I need to know what's going on. Can you say it again?
On the ground, is bleeding. Yes, please.
What? Okay, what happened?
Hello, please, help.
Can you tell me how? Sir?
No one's talking.
Sir, how many people are down? How many people are down?
Four.
You say they're bleeding?
Yes, they are.
His quiet suburban apartment in Westchester, Ohio, had just become a crime scene so horrifying, it reduced responding officers to tears.
What, if anything, did you see?
You handcuff, Marconi. Handcuff him. Handcuff him.
Is there anybody else in there except for your family?
No. My wife, everybody.
You got coverage on him? Come up here and get lethal coverage on him. Thank you.
My wife, please.
Some type of device went off.
We located 4 people deceased inside from apparent gunshots.
Westchester Police, anybody in the
Hey, I need more coverage up here.
Westchester Police, anybody in? We're very sorry. What happened today, bud? What? Do you have any idea what happened here?
I go home. I walk inside. My wife, my mom, and my eyes are all gone, bleeding.
Do you know who may have done this?
Was your door open when you came? So you think someone forced in?
Sir, I don't know. I came home.
Okay.
My door open. I see my wife, my mom on the ground.
A mother, father, aunt, and daughter were lying dead inside the apartment, and Gurpreet was the only survivor. He said he'd walked into a nightmare. But was this a nightmare of his own making? Was he a grieving husband or a calculated killer? A secret affair, mounting debts, and a crime so vicious it shocked even veteran investigators. Tonight on The Decoder, we'll uncover the chilling truth behind a case that tore a family apart. This is the story of Gurpreet Singh.
Today, the Westchester Police signed warrants for 4 counts of aggravated murder on Gurpreet Singh.
And if our world catches fire, would you die with me, die with me? I'll give you every desire. Baby, best believe, best believe.
While he was there, he did not pull the trigger. He could not have been the shooter, and the background proves that someone else orchestrated this crime.
And if the whole world conspires against you and me, I've heard them call me a liar. Baby, best believe, best believe. I know that I'm bad, I'm as bad as they come, and soon you realize I'm the chosen one. I know that I'm bad, I'm as bad as they come, and soon you realize I'm the chosen one.
We, the 3 judges Three-judge panel unanimously find the defendant guilty, 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 guilty.
Westchester Township, Ohio, roughly 20 miles north of Cincinnati, is a relatively peaceful place. Violent crime is rare, and it's known as a suburban haven, the perfect place to raise children. 41-year-old Gurpreet and his wife, 39-year-old Shalinderjeet Kaur, certainly thought so. Gurpreet was originally from Kana, the Indian state of Punjab. He was raised in a large landowning family whose main source of income was agriculture, but he dreamed of a life that meant he didn't have to work in the fields. Shalinderjeet's father, Hakikat, left his family in the 80s to come to America when she was just a baby. He married an American woman to get citizenship, who then agreed to legally adopt Shalinderjeet. When he settled in the U.S., he divorced the American woman and remarried his Indian wife, bringing his family across the globe to live in New Jersey. But they frequently traveled back to India, and it was on one such trip that Shalinderjeet married Gurpreet in 2002. This was an arranged marriage, just like that of her parents before her. Gurpreet came back with her to the U.S., and they had 3 children. They were in search of a lifestyle that could support those children. Gurpreet and Hakikat tried to go into business together, but the 2008 financial crisis put paid to this idea.
The financial crisis of 2008 wiped out more than $11 trillion of personal wealth in the U.S., threw millions out of work, and has already resulted in more than 10 million home foreclosures.
But Shalinderjeet stayed strong. She was described as a helicopter mom and was fiercely protective over her kids. The family lived with Shalinderjeet's parents, Gurpreet's parents-in-law, Parmjeet, her mother, who in 2019 was 62, and Hakikat, who was 59. Also living with them was Shalinderjeet's aunt, Amarjeet, who was 58, and had arrived in the U.S. only a few months ago. Having recovered from 2008, the family lived a seemingly harmonious existence, working to make ends meet. Gurpreet worked as a truck driver, often leaving Westchester for long periods of time for his job. He particularly worked with refrigerator trailers. Shalinderjeet picked up the slack as a stay-at-home mom for their 3 children. Meanwhile, Parmjeet and Amarjeet worked at a laundry service, and Hakikat as a gas station attendant. This was a moderate existence, but as immigrants, there was pressure to be a success. One of the family's other relatives made this clear in an interview.
Rumor, did you know, did he make a large amount of money? Did he have a lot of money?
In our society, especially this, people who drive truck, it is common to show off that, oh, I make this much money,
right,
even though they are not making,
right,
just to impress others.
The U.S. is supposed to be the land of dreams and opportunity, but many of their family members weren't so keen on leaving India on what seemed like a gamble. They could make it big, or they could struggle. To bring these relatives over, including his parents, Gurpreet had to find the money to sponsor them and buy a new, larger house with room for everyone in it. He thought he'd found a suitable place in Indianapolis. But by 2019, Gurpreet was presenting a facade that was quite different to reality. With debts mounting, he was looking to his father-in-law for help, and he didn't want anyone to know that his new life in America wasn't working out to be the success story he'd hoped. Almost every family experiences conflict surrounding money at one point or another. It's a part of life, especially when you've flown across the globe in search of financial prosperity. Gurpreet was struggling, but his parents-in-law had something to fall back on. They owned land back in India, which they were in the middle of selling. Parmjeet had actually booked a flight back to India to arrange the sale for April 30th. But these rising tensions in Gurpreet's household, with him gone much of the time, leaving his family to look after his children and support him in his debts, could still have amounted to nothing. Just another scene in the domestic drama that is life. But on April 28th, everything changed. Gurpreet and Shalinderjeet's children were staying with relatives that night. Maybe this was a lucky coincidence, maybe not. Their uncle took them out for ice cream and a movie. And then that evening, Gurpreet called, saying that they should stay over that night and he'd pick them up in the morning.
Just make sure the girls go to sleep or just watch another movie, try to keep them. Tell him he said he'll pick them up tomorrow. Just go to sleep today.
According to Gurpreet, he'd woken up around 8 that morning. It was a Sunday and he wasn't working, so he spent the day in the apartment with his wife. His mother and aunt-in-law went to work, and his father-in-law went to his temple. In the evening, they dropped the kids off with their uncle, and he spent some time working on his truck. To all the family, this seemed a perfectly ordinary day.
Video of a UDF down the street from Singh's apartment captures him putting 7 gallons in his car at 9:05 p.m. A cell phone extraction expert shows there was no activity on his cell phone between a call he took at 9:03 while he was gassing up and the time he called 911, saying he came home to find his wife, her parents, and her aunt shot to death.
For much of the call, he struggled to make himself understood.
What's going on? Can you say it again?
Just me, my wife, my family.
Your wife and your family are doing what?
They're on the ground.
Your wife? How many people are down?
My wife, my dad.
Who?
My wife, my dad, my aunt, and my aunt.
Okay, have they been shot? Have they been stabbed?
I don't know.
He seemed like a man overcome by shock and horror at what he'd found.
Somebody, I don't know anybody.
He was almost incoherent, to the extent that it raised the dispatcher's suspicions.
So they're bleeding from the head?
Yeah.
Okay, are any of them breathing?
I don't know.
Okay. Can you go check to see if they're breathing?
No. They can't.
You say you killed them?
No, what are you talking about?
Sir, did you do something to them?
No, I just got home.
It took him a while to answer her question, maybe because it was such an absurd suggestion, or maybe because he was scrambling for a response. But no one would know until responders first arrived on the scene. She urged Gurpreet to stay on the line.
Sir, can you come out front? My officers are pulling up. Come out front. Go out front and meet the officer. Do you have any weapons?
No.
You don't have any weapons in your hands?
No, I don't.
Walk out the front door and meet with my officer, okay?
Okay.
Meanwhile, the local police department received more 911 calls.
Hi, there was someone banging on our door telling us to call the police. We live at 4562 Windtree Drive, apartment 155. They're just banging on a bunch of doors, like screaming, "Please call the police! Please call the police! Please help me!"
Do you have any idea what's going on?
No, we have no idea. We're just like running around and like banging on doors and stuff. I don't know. We're just really freaked out. It's just me and my friend, and we don't really know what's going on. But he's just screaming to call the police. So.
Okay, we've got everybody en route.
Okay, thank you.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
Yes, I live at Lakefront at Westchester Apartments.
This one.
And some guy is running around banging all the doors saying,
Okay,
help
is it 4562?
Yes.
We've got everybody en route. Do you know what's going on?
I don't. He just doesn't sound
okay,
right.
We've got everybody en route.
Thank you.
Gurpreet had been running around the apartment building, trying to get his neighbors' attention late at night. This implied his distress was authentic. Or was he trying to get as many witnesses to his panic as he could? Either way, the dispatcher reassured the callers that help was on its way.
Caller was supposed to be at 4560 Windtree, apartment 154. He only said his family was on the ground bleeding. Wasn't giving us a lot of information. There is a language barrier.
When the police arrived at the apartment building, Gurpreet was coming outside.
How are you covering so much blood?
I have my wife on my lap. She tried to feed the water. No
3-4 clear.
Okay, stay there.
Yes. Please.
Hey, I need more coverage up here.
I'm not going anywhere. Please help them.
We got you.
Please help them.
The first responding officers restrained Gurpreet, as was standard procedure. Then they advanced into the building. The scene they discovered was indescribable.
Hey, Joe. Come up here. You got smoke coming from inside. We're going to make an entry. 3-20, we have 2 individuals down. It's a significant amount of blood in the front living room. Again, smoke alarm going off. We're going to be going in.
There was food burning on the stove, causing the smoke alarm to go off. The family hadn't been expecting what happened to them at all.
What happened? What was the first thing you saw?
Fire's out. My mom, my wife, my aunt.
Were they all laying down?
All on the ground.
Laying on the floor?
Yes. All bleeding.
Were they responding at all to you?
I tried.
They weren't breathing?
No one speak.
And then you called us right away?
I called you.
Okay.
I called you.
Did you kneel down and get blood on you? Okay.
Gurpreet seemed to be in shock. He just kept saying that they were bleeding and that they wouldn't respond. But since he'd been the one to find the bodies, and the only one in the apartment who was still alive, the police questioned him on the details of his story.
Okay. What time did you leave tonight? Because it's my understanding you left and then came back.
Fire Charles 93, clear.
I left.
You don't remember? All right. Was it daylight out or was it dark out? Daylight? Okay. Do you remember where you went?
My truck. I go to my truck.
Where's your truck at?
Mulhauser.
Okay, are you a truck driver? Like a semi-truck driver?
Yes.
Okay. So you went to your truck down on Mulhauser. Where's it at on Mulhauser?
Sugar Creek.
Sugar Creek Packaging? Gotcha. What did you do down at your truck? Like, about how long were you there? I don't know if anybody's okay, but like I said, I just got here, okay?
The officer wanted to know more about Gurpreet's movements that day, if only to determine when he'd been out of the house and when some armed, violent intruders might have had the chance to gain entry. But Gurpreet was distracted, slow to answer questions, if he answered them at all. Perhaps this made sense for his fragile emotional state. Perhaps he was dodging the officer's questions deliberately. They took him to the police station, if only to get him away from the scene of the crime. There, he grew even more hysterical.
Have a seat.
Why would I stay here? Sir, please.
I understand that, but there's no arguing about it. You're going to stay here, and that's final. That's it.
Okay, arrest me.
As soon as we get,
Arrest me.
you're under detain. You're in
No,
custody
no, I don't understand detain or whatever.
Back into the room.
You arrest me?
Into the room.
You need to get back in this room.
Look, he told me now that my family was shot. I thought it was an accident.
You thought what was an accident?
4 people died and you thought it was an
Yes,
accident?
I wasn't told anything.
Come on.
Sir, please arrest me or let me go.
You're detained.
They detained Gurpreet as they carried out a search warrant. The scene at that point was fresh and full of evidence that needed to be carefully deciphered, and they didn't know what to think. There were bloody footprints all over the carpet and multiple bullet holes in the walls. Investigators found a Beretta handgun with ammo in Gurpreet's bedroom, alongside a lot of money in cash, $930 on a prayer table beside one of the victims, and $8,250 in a pink purse, also in Gurpreet's and Shalinderjeet's room.
Taking witnesses for questioning and just isolated people to talk to try to further the investigation.
The police interviewed Gurpreet at the station in the early hours of April 29th.
Gurpreet Singh walks in the police interrogation room, shoeless, covered in blood.
Sir, can you please call my case?
Breathing heavily at first, then eventually calming down, Singh appears unaware of what exactly happened.
What happened to them? It looks like somebody killed them. Why? I don't know. That's why I need your help.
He maintained his original story that he'd gone out in the evening at about 7 to work on his truck, which was a vital part of his livelihood, until it got too dark to see. Then he came back to the apartment, where he found a scene that exceeded his worst possible nightmares.
What took place when you called 911? It's very important to us to help us out.
I come back. I see my mom. Yes, I see my mom. And I see my wife. And I see my aunt. I see they bleed and they're on the ground. And I am just running to try to shake them, try to see. And I go inside my dad, I shake them, he bleeds. And no one talk. I call 911. But sir, can you please tell me what happened and why all this?
Well, I don't know what happened. That's what we're trying to find out from you. What you saw, what you did today, where people were, just trying to get an idea.
The police tried to determine if there was anyone who had a grudge against Gurpreet or his family. He said he lived a perfectly average life, working first in a gas station and then as a truck driver. His only brush with the law had been a few speeding tickets. When asked about business partners or exes, he firmly denied that there could be anyone with a grudge against him. He said the family lived an ordinary, quiet existence.
Did you guys ever argue or fight more than normal? Not at all. Not even normal argument. Not at all.
Gurpreet did mention a debt they'd had from a gas station they'd opened when they first moved to the U.S. The recession in 2008, which hit everybody hard, forced it to close. But he said his father-in-law had paid off this debt by selling a plot of land he still owned back in India. He said, "Every penny is paid back. I know for a fact." In fact, it was Gurpreet who had debts, not anyone else in the family. The matter of infidelity, another common motive for murder, was similarly a dead end.
Has your wife ever been unfaithful to you? Always faithful, no problem. Okay. Have you ever been unfaithful to your wife? Always faithful, never problem.
He denied that anyone in the family had ever had an affair, including himself. He said it doesn't happen in Punjabi culture, and that if it did, the marriage would immediately end. If they were together, they were together. If they weren't, they weren't. This seemed like an honest way of going about things. That is, if he was telling the truth.
At one point, the prosecutor stops the recording.
He appears emotional. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Did you actually see any tears coming out of his eyes at this point?
No, sir.
One thing the investigators noticed was that Gurpreet was missing his shoes. He said he wore specific boots when he worked on his truck, which he kept unlaced so he could slip them on and off. He said they'd come off when he was running around in the chaos of the scene. But this was a warning sign. After all, there had been bloody boot prints on the carpet in his apartment, scattered between the bodies of his family. Without Gurpreet's boots, they couldn't compare the two. The investigator wanted to test his hands for gunshot residue. He became agitated and demanded to leave.
You're the first guy to show up where 4 people have been murdered. Is that my fault? No, that's what I'm saying. No, but we have certain evidence we need to get if it exists. I'm not saying it's even there. Look, I'm covered in blood. I understand. You think this is so easy for me? No, this is my family's blood. I think it's horrible. There's evidence, potential evidence on your hand where I don't know. I haven't sitting here all day. Get your potential evidence. Sit down. No. Here, you're not leaving. Please, Harry. Don't touch me. Harry. What did I do wrong? Why would I stay here? Sir, please.
I understand that, but there's no arguing about it. You're going to stay here, and that's final. That means
You 5 guys are doing this to me? See? Look,
Listen, do you want to sit with your hands free, which I would prefer?
I will come back, sir.
Thank you.
I gotta see my dad.
I understand.
Please let me go.
Come on. Let's have a seat.
Please no. Why don't you just arrest me then?
Just have a seat.
Why not? Why not? Let me go.
Because I gotta get
Sir,
a search
sir,
warrant.
you're in full uniform, everything. Please take me in your car. And I come back with you.
Can't do that right now.
What kind of law is it? I mean, look how you guys are getting in a position like I am some threat to you, right?
No, but you can't leave. You're not allowed to leave.
Why?
Because we're getting a search warrant for evidence that is on you.
Okay, search.
So you have
do what you gotta do.
It takes time. A judge has to sign it.
Okay, get signed and call me back. I'll come back.
You're not leaving. You can't leave.
Why not?
Because we have to maintain the integrity of any potential evidence that could be on you.
Okay, I'm not giving you anything unless I have my lawyer.
Okay.
Is that clear?
I understand. Have a
That's
seat.
it.
Have a seat.
Yes.
Have a seat.
You bring your search warrant, you bring FBI, you bring your army on me, I'm not giving you anything. I'm not. This is my right, and I am using it, and I am leaving.
Sit down.
I know my right.
Gary, sit down.
Why are you pushing me like this?
Sit down.
Then why don't you just arrest me?
You're being detained. Have a seat.
Put me under arrest. I will stay here gravity.
Have a seat.
Why?
Because I asked you to.
Sir,
And you seem like a nice guy.
please,
Have a seat.
look, sir. Someone shot my family.
Yeah.
Why are you asking me this?
Because we're getting a search warrant.
I'm not staying here unless you arrest me or unless you let me go.
Well, you're being detained. You're staying here.
What is detained?
That means you're not allowed to leave.
Why?
Because
under what crime I do?
They detained him as he requested a lawyer, and they got a warrant to test his hands and search him. In his wallet, they found $1,836 in cash, including 14 $100 bills. This wasn't a crime, but it was a huge amount of cash to just happen to be carrying around on the night his family was murdered. Coincidences in a police investigation have to be examined carefully, but they don't amount to hard evidence. After enacting these warrants, the police released Gurpreet pending further investigation. The gunshot residue test came back positive, but this didn't conclusively prove him to be the shooter. It could have transferred onto his hands if he touched one of the victims' heads after they'd been shot at close range. And they had been. The autopsy revealed that Gurpreet's father-in-law, Haqiqat, was shot first while lying in bed. His daughter, Gurpreet's wife, was shot next in the kitchen while making tea. Gurpreet's mother and aunt were shot in the living room watching TV. Each of them was shot multiple times in the head, with a total of 16 gunshot wounds between them. There were no defensive wounds. This innocent, loving family was taken completely by surprise, and it's likely they never even knew what hit them. 4 lives taken, just like that. The Beretta in Gurpreet's closet did not match the victim's wounds when compared on a ballistic level. However, a witness came forward saying they'd heard a splash that night, and there was a pond behind the apartment building. So, just 2 days later, divers searching the pond discovered another gun.
As divers from the State Bureau of Criminal Investigations searched this pond off Smith Road,
They picked something up, and then they took a bunch of measurements.
Rick Karvosky was watching from his apartment. He snapped these pictures, an angle our cameras couldn't get, and he took this video. He and his neighbors are convinced divers pulled a gun from the pond. Police can't confirm that.
It had to have been a small, just a handgun, because the way you can see him trying to carry something.
It was a Ruger SR9 9mm pistol. Its serial number had been pried off.
And tell us what we're looking at here.
We are looking at a Ruger SR9 with the serial number plate removed from the gun. And a magazine with a magazine with a 17 round capacity.
It matched the fatal gunshot wounds in each of Gurpreet's family members and the shell casings found in the apartment.
All the shell casings match the firearm submitted?
Correct.
The 2 bullets match the firearm submitted?
Correct.
There was no discernible DNA on it. However, that it had been disposed of so close to the crime scene implied that whoever had tried to get rid of it had a limited window of time to do so. perhaps because he'd stayed in the vicinity of the crime scene the whole time.
Spatter on the wall outside the apartment in front of the lake was that of victim Hakikat Panog, and DNA from Hakikat was on the end of the barrel of the gun found in the lake, and blood spatter was found on the back of the defendant's shirt, leading the prosecution to ask a blood spatter expert about a possible scenario.
And I went to throw it. That blood could come off the gun on the siding?
Could potentially.
Could it also explain why I've got blood in the middle of my back?
Could, yes.
The investigators also discovered Gurpreet's boots at the crime scene. They were stained in blood, matching the blood that covered his jeans, socks, and hands. But again, he'd said he'd burst into a crime scene and tried desperately to revive his loved ones. This didn't necessarily prove anything.
And so if an individual grabbed the victim by the head or hair, we would expect that individual to have GSR on his hands, right?
Correct.
But there was another discrepancy that night. His frantic 911 call was placed to Westchester Dispatch at 9:42 p.m. On the phone, he said he'd only just gotten home to find his family like this.
Sir, did you do something to them?
No, I just got home.
But GPS told a different story. It placed Gurpreet in the parking lot of the apartment building at 9:03 p.m., a full 39 minutes before he called 911. Either he'd been in the area, ignorant of what was going on upstairs, and lied about it to the police because he feared looking like a killer, or he was that killer, and he'd spent those 39 minutes murdering his family members one by one. The order in which they'd been killed also supported this theory. The murders had started in the bedroom with Hakikat, working their way out towards the door. If it had been an intruder bursting in through the front door, surely they would have killed whoever stood in their path first. It didn't make sense, unless Gurpreet was lying and was the killer himself. But why? Shalinderjeet's uncle, the brother of her mother and aunt, told a different story about fidelity within the family. He said that Gurpreet had a history with prostitutes.
Do you know, or have you ever been specifically told that Gurpreet, other than the prostitutes you're talking about, did he have any legitimate girlfriends or mistresses on the side?
I heard that he was involved with the...
The uncle answered yes.
And how recently was that?
Must be like maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. And where did she say she was from?
She was in this area. I don't know, but she was, Indian, born in India, maybe like a divorced woman. She looked attractive.
Okay, so you had heard that he had a pretty girlfriend somewhere.
Yeah.
According to this witness, which aligned with what Gurpreet himself had said, infidelity was not at all acceptable in their community.
People will not accept it. They say, no, I don't want it in my home, because if you are doing this to that woman, you might try to do the same thing with my wife, or, so they will not, let you do that.
Okay.
Gurpreet's mistress was named Navkaran Kaur. She was also Indian and lived in Indianapolis. He'd met her while on one of his long truck journeys away from home. She was also married, but her relationship was a troubled one.
My ex-husband would beat me. After that, Gurpreet would call me, text message me. He was funny and he was nice. I liked talking to him.
Did it become romantic?
Yes.
At that time, did you know that the defendant was married?
Yes.
Did the two of you begin a sexual relationship?
After my divorce.
The two saw each other at least once or twice a week and communicated daily. For Navkaran, Gurpreet represented a welcome escape from a terrible situation. This was not only an emotional escape, but a financial one too. He gave her $20,000 to help her purchase a house following her divorce, as well as an Infiniti SUV and more money for mortgage payments. This liberated her from life under a cruel man's thumb, but had untold consequences for Gurpreet's own marriage.
Defendant asked you if he had been single, would you consider marrying him?
Yes. And I said, If my parents agreed, then I would.
In March 2019, Shalinderjeet apparently discovered his entanglement with Navkaran. She opened a bank statement delivered in the post and found the $20,000 payment. She confronted Gurpreet, who didn't deny that he'd helped Navkaran, but did not say that she was his mistress. Perhaps he didn't need to. The implications were obvious, and possibly worst of all, Navkaran lived in the same subdivision where the family hoped to move to in Indianapolis. Had Gurpreet engineered this all to be closer to the woman he was seeing outside his marriage? Shalinderjeet consulted her friends at the local Gurdwara, but she refused to consider divorce. When you're married to someone for that long, 17 years, across cities and continents, the idea of a different life could be unthinkable. If only she'd been able to think of it, much might have been different on April 28th. That day, Gurpreet was still messaging Navkaran. They talked on and off all evening, until eventually he stopped replying because he'd been detained by the police. She had no idea, though they were communicating almost all night, he didn't once mention the horrors that had happened at home. If he was grief-stricken, having just lost most of his family, including his wife, even if he'd been unfaithful to her, surely he would reach out to his mistress for comfort or support. But he did not. For the next few months after the killings, Gurpreet stayed with a cousin of his in Connecticut. The police spent his time gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses, including his uncle-in-law. He said that at 8:08 p.m. on the night of her death, Amarjeet had called him.
She called
8:08
p.m.
Sunday on Eastern time.
Yes, sir. And I could see, from her voice and from her sound that she was scared for something.
Because I grew up with her, I could tell from her tone that she is scared for something.
She didn't say what, but he implied there was a culture of threat surrounding Gurpreet. The uncle said he wasn't surprised that Gurpreet had been arrested, and we knew there were disputes in the family, and we expected fistfights or a divorce, but we never expected the whole family to be killed. Gurpreet was also strangely proud of his gun.
Has he ever talked about owning a gun or having a gun or showing off a gun to anyone?
He did. And a few times he mentioned about guns.
Okay, well, tell me about that.
That was a while ago. He was some kind of a mentioning. He wanted to get the automatic rifle someday. That was a long time ago. I told him that, it's not a good idea to own a gun. First of all, as we are, Punjabi culture, we are not a gun type of people. I say, more like a small, maybe single loaded, because you don't want to kill it, you just shoot. Most of the time these people are on the way. In the worst, you have a single shotgun, you shoot on the ground, they will be scared, as a team, they run away from these kind of, things. But if you get a robber, like a big criminal, they don't care if you have a gun, they will take care of you even before you pick up a gun. This is what happens in movies. So I told him the other thing, as if you have children, young children, you should have the real bad thing is you don't own a gun if you have a family problem. Because somewhere along the line you're going to get upset and to pick up either her dear spouse or some other relative. As if somebody is tempered. No, I'm not tempered, guys.
Was he a tempered guy? I mean, in your opinion?
People are telling me that he was tempered.
But you don't know him well enough to know.
I don't know.
This apparently extended to violence in his personal life. A few months before the killings, his father-in-law, Haqiqat, had been seen with bruises.
Did he tell you where the bruises had come from or how he got them?
He got something, like he pushing him down, like beating him with something, maybe stick or something.
So Haqiqat told you that he was pushed down or beat.
Yes.
Did he say who had done that?
Gurpreet.
Haqiqat had been killed first, suggesting the most rage, and Haqiqat had been a victim of Gurpreet's violence before. This was a telling piece of evidence. And with such evidence mounting, on July 2nd, 2019, he was arrested at a Walmart in Brantford, where he'd gone for a family wedding.
That is the moment you just saw there of police arresting Gurpreet Singh earlier this month. You can see he was outside what looks like a Walmart when police converged on him and got him on the ground. Singh is charged with killing 4 people, his wife, mother and father-in-law, and his aunt back in April.
He spent a month in jail in New Haven before being extradited back to Ohio. In October 2022, he was tried for quadruple murder. The prosecutors pointed to evidence like the bloody footprints, gunshot residue, and inconsistent GPS data. They suggested that the motive had been financial, that he'd been in so much debt because of his financial gifts to his mistress, Navkiran, that he'd become desperate. Shalinderjeet's parents owned land back in India that they were about to sell, scuppering any chance he had of inheriting it. He needed to kill them before they could. He believed that if he did, the land and all its value would go to him. The defense, however, offered a different story. They too focused on this same land, but said that it was the subject of an Indian mafia deal.
Sergeant Oakes was brought in to question witnesses and collect evidence at the murder scene. Upon cross-examination, the defense questioned the sergeant about its theory that it was not the defendant who shot the victims, it was the Sikh mafia, due to a land deal gone bad with one of the victims.
You were aware as part of your investigation that Shabazz and Khalid Khan were known as being part of the land mafia in India.
I did hear that, yes.
Parmjeet, Gurpreet's mother-in-law, had been planning to go to India to sell it on April 30th. Initially, Gurpreet was supposed to go, but in a notarized affidavit, Parmjeet wrote that she was canceling his power of attorney because he was being threatened and felt too frightened to be involved. Parmjeet's brother supported the idea that there was a dispute about the land.
They're like hitmen back in India. They threatened my nephew that if you don't get out of this thing, you will get eliminated, or that form of thing. I talked to my nephew, that's what he told me.
I understand.
And my nephew, the young guy, he got scared.
Apparently, it was a dispute between business partners. Gurpreet's lawyers presented this as an international crime conspiracy. According to them, he'd come home from working on his truck to find his family murdered by agents of this conspiracy. But in return, the prosecutors pointed out that it was Gurpreet's own relatives in India who were buying his father-in-law's property. If this was a conspiracy, he was intimately involved in it, and the whole thing looped right back around into his need for money again. However, there was no confession, no smoking gun, only competing theories to go along with the physical evidence. This proved too much for one jury member who refused to convict.
A hung jury ended the quadruple murder trial of a Westchester man accused of executing members of his own family. Gurpreet Singh's lawyers want him released, but that is just part of the fallout.
A hung jury is never a desirable outcome in a criminal case.
The end of Gurpreet Singh's quadruple murder trial brought no joy.
We wanted a not guilty verdict.
On Singh's side, among victims' loved ones,
it's just, I feel like I wasted 3 weeks of my life.
Upset jurors, nor anyone in Butler County Prosecutor Mike Mosher's office.
There are only 4 words to describe my decision to move forward with another trial, and those 4 words are yes and hell yes.
This grieving son from Melbourne, Australia is in California, barely sleeping and refusing to go home until a Butler County jury decides Gurpreet Singh's fate. Amarjeet was Han's mother. For 3 weeks, he suffered through testimony with gory details of his loved one's final moments in Butler County to see jurors give up without a verdict. Jurors Wesley and Tony told us one of the 12 jurors made any unanimous verdict impossible.
She told us the first day of deliberation that she's not budging.
The very first day
of deliberation.
The prosecution wasn't happy with this outcome.
Did Gurpreet seem relieved?
He wanted finality, and I truly, Charlie Ritkers, I believe that he is innocent, and he has maintained his innocence from day one. So, he's disappointed that it wasn't a not guilty verdict.
They demanded a new trial and that the judge recuse himself because of how he'd handled juror conflict. The jurors had requested transcripts of some of the testimony from the judge while they were deliberating, but he refused. Hours later, 2 jurors were heard to be screaming and arguing with each other. Deliberations had taken 14 hours. One juror was also furious with the result.
He was covered in blood. It's a bloodbath.
So, I mean, it's obvious. It's 4 dead people. He's sitting there. Whose other blood could it be?
After 2 years in jail, Gurpreet had run out of money to pay his legal fees. He'd sold all his assets to pay his team nearly $300,000, and the new house in Indiana was sold at a loss. For his next trial, he'd have to use court-appointed legal aid. He was totally bankrupt.
In the courtroom today, Gurpreet Singh appeared to be alert, unlike the last time when he collapsed as he stood in front of the judge. In the gallery today, a handful of supporters.
He does have support. The people that you just mentioned that are in the courtroom are his family members that do support him.
Also in the courtroom, relatives of the 4 victims, some of whom flew in from other states seeking justice.
And in this new trial, there was a big difference. He waived his right to a jury trial. Instead, his case would be heard by a panel of 3 judges. Their ruling would have to be unanimous, just like with a jury. And just like with a jury, the option for the death penalty was on the table.
Now, for the first time, we are hearing about how his children are doing.
It boils my blood. I feel like, if it was outside in the street, I could, punch his face or do something worse.
That feeling is one Ajaib Singh says he experiences every time he sees Gurpreet Singh in the courtroom. Now, with their mother gone and their father behind bars, Gurpreet's kids are staying with family in California.
He believes his mom is in India. That's what he was told originally, that your mom has gone to India.
In fact, that's what Ajaib Singh says all 3 kids believed until they read what actually happened to their mom on the internet.
We will continue to see, we will continue to do whatever we can to get the justice for my sisters.
In this new trial, Gurpreet's defense didn't try to deny that he'd been in the apartment a lot earlier than he'd said he had. In fact, they allowed that he'd even witnessed the killings. But they said he was only an innocent witness, lucky to be alive.
I think this panel is wise enough to see that there are much more layers to this case, many unanswered questions, and suspects that were not ruled out, and the potential that Gurpreet may have been scared of something worse than the police and with complicated loyalties.
It was only this defendant inside that small, cramped apartment that night who had the motive, who had the opportunity, and who was actually physically present in that apartment.
While he was there, he did not pull the trigger. He could not have been the shooter, and the background proves that someone else orchestrated this crime.
They maintained that it was the land mafia who had torn his family apart. Gurpreet himself did not take the stand to be questioned on this claim. In May 2024, the 3 judges concluded their 2-hour deliberations and found him guilty on all 4 counts of aggravated murder.
We, the 3-judge panel, unanimously find the defendant, Gurpreet Singh, guilty, 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 guilty.
He deserved hell, so enjoy your last meal.
We, the 3-judge panel, do hereby unanimously find that the aggravating circumstance that the defendant was found guilty of committing does outweigh the mitigating factors presented in this case by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. We, therefore, unanimously find that the sentence of death should be imposed upon Gurpreet Singh under count 1 of the indictment.
He never showed any emotions.
He was planning to commit this crime for many years.
It's a little piece for my parents, like my family.
Now he should suffer in the hell.
Today, Gurpreet Singh sits on death row alongside 114 other inmates. All executions have been suspended indefinitely by the governor until a suitable alternative method for execution is found, since lethal injection presents logistical problems. It is therefore unknown when Gurpreet will be executed. Shalinderjeet's 3 children and the rest of the extended family continue to grieve for what they've lost.
After the verdict, relatives shared hugs and handshakes with prosecutors and members of the Westchester Police Department. It's been a painful 5 years for the family.
What do you think about this horrifying story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, keep up with our channel, and we'll see you very soon on The Decoder.